This is a live mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Second mic check. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Third mic check. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Okay,
Tricia's here, good.
Wilmington is.
good evening. The Beach Advisory Committee meeting, and we have 7 members present, quorum. The 8th member unfortunately could not be here. We were hoping to have her on Skype, but it didn't work where she's located. In any case, we have a fairly decent agenda for tonight, and let's start with the minutes of October 29th. You all should have a copy of that. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All righty. As usual, we open the meeting to the public for anything that's not on the agenda, and if it is on the agenda, I'll just let you know. But if you do have comments, questions, please go to the podium and tell us your name and where you live.
Do you have anything on the?
Linda?
Linda Hanna, 7 Crescent Avenue. Do you have anything on the agenda about the beach profiling? I know about the money, we're all cool there, but with parking.
With parking.
The beach profilers profile in 2 locations. One is in front of Elmeters, and they have generously allowed us to park in their driveway. The other one is in front of Peter Gray's, and he's always allowed us to park in his driveway, even when he's not there, like last Saturday. But he rents it out now. So we were parking on the road, but then the police came along and they were not happy with us. So do you suppose maybe someone from this committee could talk to the police department? It's not like we have anybody in charge of us, it's just a volunteer. Judy Merrill is the one that organizes us. So it's not like the water testing has Allison. So back 100 years ago, Judy Barrett made signs for us that were the beach profiler, beach water testers. So we put our beach water testing sign in the window. But it would be nice if somebody could talk to the police department and say, okay, these are the profilers. They have 2 sticks and a little basket that they take, and it takes them, at Peter Gray's site, it takes us what, a maximum of a half an hour? It's just
Linda, do you know the address of Peter Gray's house? Approximate?
Oh, they're all changing, right? I don't know.
It'd probably be about 183 or 5.
I don't know what the address of Peter
West End.
Gray's house
Okay.
is.
West End, yeah.
Linda, do you think the signs helped, at least to acknowledge what you were doing there?
Well, no, the policemen have never stopped us. Now, usually we're there very early in the morning, so there's parking places and so forth. However, on retest days, we've put the sign in the window and we've never gotten in trouble for the
So-
water testing.
So do we need to make you new signs and make the police aware
I think we
of
just.
what's going on?
2 things. I think we should let the police know what's happening. And
Certainly.
the little beach police with the parking, they give us parking tickets. They need to know what's happening, but then we have a little sheet of paper that's laminated or something cool like that, and we just put it on the windshield to say, this is what we're doing.
So you're parking in a cross street, is that the idea? I mean, if all the slots are taken, this is during the summer, I take it.
This is during the summer. There's no parking
It's
down
on the,
near Peter Gray's house.
It's on the west
Right,
side
it's on
and
the
there's no
west side.
parking.
Ah, got it, thank you, now I got it.
But like, we've parked in his driveway for years, like 20.
Yeah.
But now there's renters there, so that's the only,
I just had a data point. How many cars are involved for parking? How many spaces do you need?
at that site, would you say there's only one that comes there?
We have 1 vehicle.
So we're looking for a place to park one vehicle for about 30 minutes while you do your measurement.
And how often?
We ought to be able to solve that problem, guys, come on.
Once a month.
Once a
Once a
month,
month.
Or no, that's once a week.
still, 10
No,
times.
well, this is profiling.
Well, you kept saying water testing too.
Well, we do both. But I think we're okay with water testing. It's the profiling. And it can be, we profile at the low tide that month, the astronomical low tide that month. So we are given the dates that we are to profile. So it could be 9 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon or any time in between.
How many cars for the profilers?
Just one?
One.
Just one? And do you need the same thing for those who are testing?
No, because we already have placards that seem to work. All it is a sheet of paper, beach,
Okay.
you know, it's
Well,
really,
it's a question of just telling the chief of police who
Hit him with your sticks.
that's
talks
the
to
key.
everybody else.
That's the key right
Okay,
there.
fine.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
That's easy.
Anyone else?
I just have something that's a little tangential, but one of our beachfront owners, the Poole family, lost Doug. I know him from a long time, and some of you may or may not know Doug, but he's just a heck of a nice guy, and his family has a beautiful home up there in Sandpoint. And I just wanted to acknowledge my appreciation for the Poole family, and especially Doug, to help us get to this point where we have a beach advisory committee. And if you don't know, he's just a heck of a guy, and I wanted you to be aware of it. Thank you.
We're at a point where the meeting is open to the public. Anyone else? No? Well, then let's go on for our agenda. The next item is fires on the beach, and there was a concern articulated at our last meeting about campfires on the beach. And Bob Sherman and I had a meeting with the town manager and the chief of police. The way it works is, assuming the weather is okay, there are 10 possible permits per day. 5 of them are allocated to beachfront property owners, and the other 5 are allocated to the general public. It's first come, first served. Now, the fires are not supposed to be bonfires. They're supposed to be small campfires. The chief of police says that he has gone through the issue with the state, and that he is prepared, if there is an issue of bonfires on the beach, he has the authority to stop it. So if you have a complaint on a particular day, you need to call the police department, and they will send someone out. And if there is if there's a bonfire, then they would tell the people to put it out. I'm not sure what else I can tell you. I have a neighbor across the street. Summertime, his fireplace is going all the time. So the smoke, I smell it, it's a wood fire. And I suppose when there are fires on the beach, depending on how the wind is blowing, that you can smell a wood fire. The issue is it a bonfire, and is there a lot of smoke, and is it irritating to people in the neighborhood? So I know that there's one person who has raised the issue, and we have additional information from her as to fires and some pictures of charred wood on the beach. And sometimes it's not easy to tell whether the charred wood is coming up with the tide or whether it's from a fire. But that is the position of the town, that the chief of police, either himself or one of the patrolmen will come out if there is a call that there is an issue with the fires. And be happy to entertain any questions that anyone has as to that.
Richard, did a time for ending the fires come up? Is there an ending time where you can't have a fire, no matter what's, even a little beach fire, after a certain hour?
You know what, I didn't ask that question, Jim. As I recall, that,
10 o'clock.
that it's pretty much limited, and it's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, okay. Well, if it's an hour, it's important for the rental agents, for example, to know that and be able to tell their people.
Well, it isn't just the rental agents, the people have to actually have a permit.
Yeah,
And if the
the permit says it, maybe. Yeah.
if they are having want to have a fire in front of someone's house, they have to have the permission of that person.
Okay.
Now, apparently, many of the fires are in front or on the Conservation Trust property. And as I understand it from the town, the Conservation Trust has given general permission so that individuals do not have to go to the Conservation Trust each time they want to have a fire.
Richard? I think I have a problem then with the fact that there's apparently I think there should be some limit on how many fires can be in a particular area. Because I think if you have 5 fires in one night, all massively burning away in a relatively limited space, that puts a lot of,
That's a bonfire,
that's,
basically.
well, if they're not all.
I know they're not, but you put them together,
But you
it's
put
the
them
same
together,
as
it
one
has the
bonfire.
exactly, it has the cumulative
Yeah.
effect, I think. And I think could we discuss this again with the chief of police? Could we put there are other areas, maybe we talk to the Tides and find out, because again, they're across the street, there's not a house right in front of it. Maybe we ask that the fires be spread out a bit, so that no one neighborhood or one homeowner is particularly impacted.
Well, I don't think the chief of police can do that without some direction from the Board of Selectmen.
Well,
Does the trust have to clear their appointments with anybody? In other words, could the trust give out 5 permits for fire one
The
night?
trust doesn't give out a permit.
yeah.
Well,
but-
they just
The
do
police
it.
department gives out the permit.
All
They're
right.
designated by the fire department to be the ones who issue the permit.
Okay, but what did you say about the trust being able to give out permits?
No, I said the trust has given general permission for people who desire to have a bonfire,
Campfire.
a campfire,
Small
that
campfire,
that
the actual
they do not
words.
have to go to the trust and get permission. Whereas if it was in front of your house, Jim, they would have to get
I see.
permission from you individually.
Okay.
Sheila, do you have any opinion on this?
I would think it would be a little difficult for the police to oversee that. And if we're gonna, I know it can be an annoyance, but backyard fire pits are an annoyance. And, do we stop people from doing that? I don't know what the answer is. If somebody is going to put a fire in front of another person's house, it would be up to that person to say, gee, no, Jean's doing it tonight, or Joe is doing it tonight. So that would limit it in certain areas. But as far as the Conservation Trust, we can find out if we can limit it, but it's a hard thing to do.
No, it is, but the chief of police did say that he is prepared to have a policeman go out if there are bonfires. But in terms of having a limitation as to how many are going to be in one area, I'm not sure how we police that. It would seem to me it would have to be some amendment to the ordinance or regulation
Yeah.
to give guidance to the police department.
And then the question is, when you say in front of a beach owner's house, does that just include the 25 feet? Or does that include the whole beach in front of his house?
The way the ordinance reads, at least as I interpret it, because the signers of the beach use agreement still own the beach in front of their house. There's a reserved area of 25 feet, but they do own the beach to the low water mark.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
That's
That's not how I
These are
interpreted it.
beachfront property owners who were not part of the litigation and signed the beach use agreement. They, as the way the ordinance is worded, it appears that if it's anywhere in their beachfront property, then whoever wants a permit has to get their permission.
Okay, okay.
And they do ask for that. I've had my share of small cooking fires in front of my house. About 50% of the time, a police officer stops by and asks to see the permit. And on the permit, if I recall correctly, it says where you said you're going to have it. So they can certainly track where there's supposed to be fires.
I can find out if we can limit, say, just the Conservation Trust property.
But
Well,
limit a spacing of fires, or what? I mean, it's
It's quite
several lots there. It's,
Yeah,
so,
it's quite a large beach. How often would that happen? How, huh?
Every night, I would say.
Jean, do you want to go over and
June,
use the
July,
mic?
August.
But I mean, five
Jean
in the
Shimataro,
same
42
area.
Wildwood Ave.
5 in the same area.
It's straight out from Proctor, and they have designated spots for where the fires can be. I was going to ask you too, if you'd explain again what type of fire, what size of fire they're supposed to have. But it's not an annoyance or an inconvenience. It's a real health issue that we have this smoke all the time. I've started having allergic reactions to the smoke. And as a result of it, I can't sit out front in the evening. I have to immediately close my windows when I start smelling the smoke. And then at 10 o'clock, and the police are good about having it go out at 10 o'clock, but the smoke's not gone at 10 o'clock. So there's a huge amount of information about what the harmful effects of this particular smoke does to your lungs, your whole system. In my immediate area alone, there is asthma, COPD, heart disease. All of this is affected, and severe lung problems. So the fact that we have this smoke every single night, because the side streets act like a wind tunnel, and it just brings it right down through the neighborhood. If it should be foggy that night, it just sits there like a blanket besides. But it's a health issue. And I understand that there's a pleasurable aspect to it, but it's at our expense. It's at our health's expense.
Gene, one of the points the chief made was that, yes, he has the authority to tell someone to put the fire out. But if it's your next-door neighbor who has a
Fire pit.
fire pit or a fireplace, he has no authority.
I know, and that actually adds to it. But I feel that because this is now out on the town's beach, and it was this past year that I began to understand all of this. And years ago, the fires had been less regulated, more spread out, and then for the convenience of the police to come and make sure they went out at 10 o'clock, they grouped them all within less than a 2-block area. And that's when because of the amount of smoke, I began to notice the effects from it, and then I started doing the research on,
I don't think the police are grouping it. I think it
they
probably.
designate where your fires can be.
Yeah, I've never been told where to have my fire. They ask me, where are you going to have it? But they've never said, this is where you, that, I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know.
But
And
is
the
that
wording-
because you're a private homeowner out there as compared to out in front of Proctor?
I don't really know.
Well, I think
But I don't know,
there's-
they've never told me where to have it. I tell them where I'm having it.
I've
And
understood.
the wording in the thing is small cooking fire. There's no bonfire.
Yeah, they're not
there's no
small cooking
cookout.
fires.
I understand. Those are the words that the permit says, small cooking fire. Like marshmallows, hot dogs, that, those, I'm just saying, those
Yeah.
are the words.
I suppose there's an inconvenience issue, and that is, if I want to have a fire, it's more convenient for me to have the general permission of the Conservation Trust, and I don't have to go to Joanne or Jim or some other beachfront property owner to ask their permission.
And you park there and you go right out the right of way. So either they're 4, as I had understood, or 5 are designated into that area, and.
They're not designated
I-
into it, the 5 permits for the general public are not designated to a specific area. They can be anywheres in the 2.5 miles of the beach.
But I think the fires tend to, once they have been there over several days, you get an area where there's partially burned wood, that's where you build your next fire. So I think they really become, even though they may not be officially designated,
They cluster
they
themselves.
cluster themselves and they stay in the same area.
And
But
the
they also-
access is easier there
Yeah.
too, because
Yeah.
it's,
I
you
will
don't have a
check, and
house you
I
have to
might
walk
be
on.
wrong, but I thought that when the permit was given out, and they give you a map of the area, and they mark and say, that this is where you can have your fire.
Well,
I
there are,
don't think so.
there are places on the beach, primarily the Conservation Trust, where you don't have to get permission from a property owner.
Correct.
So that is likely what the map would show, is this is an area, if you don't have permission from a particular property owner, this is where you can have your fire.
And this is where the problem comes from, because that area is just coming right back into the neighborhood. When I spoke last time, I referenced particularly the beginning of September, there was a full moon, and I walked out to Kings Highway, and I was going out to the beach to watch it come up, and I literally couldn't stay there for a minute because of the amount of smoke, and it was a spectacular night. I can understand wanting to do this, but the amount of smoke that was coming from these enormous fires and the number of fires, it's startling when you, because back home, when I'm back at the house, I don't see what it is. That was really showing me this is what's going on.
Well, if you're talking about enormous fires, the police, they're prepared to tell people that they have to put them out.
But I'm not out there patrolling every night. I'm back at the
No.
house, it comes in my window, and
And you pick up the phone and you call the police department and they'll send someone out. I mean, it's in some ways the same issue that we have with fireworks. The police don't know about it unless somebody calls.
I think we still have the issue, though, of the concentration.
That-
And
that-
whether it's discuss it with the Conservation Trust and say, we appreciate your being helpful about letting people have blanket permission there, but some issues have been raised, and it seems as though all of the general public fires are now concentrating in that one area.
and bring to their attention
Yeah,
that
please
it's
bring
a
it to their
health,
attention.
it's a health hazard. Besides, it's not just an inconvenience of smelling the smoke.
I mean, I'm not down on the beach that frequently. In the 33 years we've been here, we've had one campfire one time. a long time ago, so I couldn't even tell you what the permit looked like or the process. But I think, as we've all seen, there has been more intense use of the beach in many different ways. And if the fact that means every general public permit is utilized every night whenever the weather cooperates, and it all tends to happen in one particular relatively small area, I think it's something to perhaps address either with the Conservation Trust or see if we can mitigate it somehow. If some people in that area, maybe not everybody, but some people are feeling the effects of
I
this.
agree. The trust has several pieces there as well, and maybe it just has to be said that there is one fire per lot. And you don't have to get, but the police would know that, and if there's more than one, and if they're telling people indeed where the fire can be, that can be easily shown, the number of lots, and it's one per lot, and that's gonna spread it out by definition.
What do you think about the Conservation Trust putting signs up in front of their property saying fires are limited to?
Signs?
Oh,
I thought that was a four-letter
The ones they
word.
don't, nobody
Please
reads.
don't put any more
What did I
signs
say?
at this meeting.
She said signs.
Okay, 2 signs.
No.
That say, "You're allowed 2 fires in this space, period, stop." That's all I'm
But, yeah,
gonna say.
that's fair, that's fair. You just people hate signs.
A lot of people hate signs, but they also need to realize there's two limits.
But let's see if we can limit it to one per property, and maybe that way, the trust doesn't have to be in the business of giving permits, and the police can know that they can't allocate more than one per lot.
Does anybody know,
It's the same thing for me, that's.
Yeah.
This
does
gentleman's
anybody know if
waiting
the
to be heard.
Tides, I know Rick wants, does anybody know if the Tides has that as a part of their amenities for their guests, or maybe?
Do they do a fire on the beach for their guests?
Yeah.
Well, only if they had a permit.
Well, I know, we're all talking, anybody has to have a permit, but I'm looking at maybe other areas where it is a little bit more wide open, and again, people would have to have their permission, maybe again, I think we need to talk about it a little bit further.
Okay.
I agree. I'd be happy
yeah.
to talk with the conservation also about what the impact is.
Or
And maybe
maybe,
how many too. It's just my concern that now that I know what this smoke can do to your health, I don't want it inflicted on me on an every night basis for months and have to shut my windows because I'm getting allergic reactions to it. So, yeah, I'd be happy to talk with them and see where we can make some changes from here.
or maybe what we can do is when they offer the permit, have a PS under it that says, you must be 75 yards from any other fire, because nobody's going to say,
Right.
okay, where are the lots?
Right, yeah.
Because they're not going to know. But if you tell them that they cannot be close together,
Yeah, yeah,
that might help.
yep. Define the spacing.
Yeah.
And maybe having less of them, spread out and less
Well,
of
5
them.
per night. How many per night?
10.
5,
10.
10.
10 permits,
That's right.
5, beachfront, 5.
So when you say a
Everybody
homeowner
else.
can get a permit, they can get a permit to go on the trust property as well as their property.
Sure they can.
Or their friend's property, or what if they have a, yeah. So it could be as
What-
many as 10.
Well, it's 5, I assume, in front of their property. So if Joanne wants a fire, she can get a permit for her property.
Oh, for just her property?
Yeah.
Ah,
I
so-
would,
so
I would
is it the
imagine that if
homeowner?
she wanted to go on the Conservation Trust property,
It would
I'd have to
take-
get a permit for that.
Get one of the public permits, though. So there's really only 5 that could ever be in front of the
Yes.
conservation property.
yes.
Those,
So if we bring it down to 3, that's all. Who is our Conservation Trust liaison, John?
I will
Could you raise your hand, please, sir?
But wait, I'll talk to them.
those pictures that I sent of the logs and in one case, a piece of particle board that was partially burnt, you can see where the sand has gone over an area to where the, smaller pieces of wood
Sure.
were put out. They're all charcoal, they're half burnt, and they cover it with a layer of sand. The water comes, it uncovers it, and it's right there that these logs were there too. So it's scavenging or, oh, look, there's a log right here where I can have a fire, and then they add to this. And I mean, that's where it's a combination of how big these fires are and even what they're burning. One of those pictures showed a piece of what had been about this big pressure-treated wood. You know, it's dark, they're out there, they're going to go scavenge for more wood, and anything goes.
This is not the last time it will be on the agenda. We will have a further discussion with the town on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rick?
Yep,
Yes, please.
Rick Roberge, 36 Wildwood Ave. I'm not going to express an opinion. I've had my share of fires down on the public part of the beach. When you walk into the police station, they say, are you a beachfront owner? I say, no. They say, okay, you've got 5 spots, and they show me the lines. They're between Belvedere and Proctor. You pick the one you want, and that's where your fire has to be. There's also rules. You give them $50. If there's no mess, you get your $50 back. I hope the police are keeping the $50 and cleaning up after the slobs, but that's all I wanted to do was say what the process was, because it sounded like maybe a lot of people haven't had fires down there.
Thank you.
Okay?
All righty, thanks, Rick.
That's helpful info.
Was it, and maybe Carol or Barbara can correct me on this, wasn't it about 2 years ago that Saco got fined $35,000 for someone's dog or something attacking a bird and not protecting a bird? Okay, what is the liability of this town if one of the people that this lady has mentioned could prove that the chronic flowing of smoke precipitated their heart attack, their OPD, their serious lung compromise? Since now, as you would say, the town theoretically is responsible, what is the liability of the town? Is it at least, or, is it at least that?
I assume that's more of a rhetorical question, Jim.
Yeah, it is in part, but it's,
So
it could happen.
What's the liability if you have a fire pit in your yard and you fire it up every night? Or you have a
That's
fireplace?
clearly my worry, in my front yard at least, but, there has been a legal decision, and someone could argue that the town has responsibility if they don't do something it's been brought before this group, it may get to, there's a select person present, and if something were to happen to one of the people affected by this smoke, they could have a case.
I think we're going,
I'm not a lawyer, you are, but,
yeah, we're going wide afield here.
okay.
Ready? The next item is the GRB brochure probably has to have some revisions. Can I have a volunteer to take a look at the, I see, Joanne, you have it in your hand.
Thank you.
Oh, you're it.
It's not that bad.
My misfortune to come prepared. Usually if I miss a meeting, I get nominated. What were your concerns?
Well, I just, we've had a number of comments that there were some omissions and that we maybe need to take a look at it before the town orders another batch of them. So, would you be prepared to do that?
I can look at it, but I don't recall what the issues
Yeah,
were.
what were the
So
issues?
I'd have to be refreshed on what's missing, what wanted to be
I'm
added.
not sure.
I know there was
I have
some,
no idea.
Were they in some of the minutes? Was it in
I-
the minutes?
I don't remember specific omissions being mentioned, and I don't recall anything like that in the minutes.
one of the discussions I know was that the dog rules are
Yeah.
very complicated.
Yes.
In order to change the dog rules, I think we need to re-meet with the dog committee and change the dog rules, but that's just my
Yeah,
personal
well,
dog
that's-
Joanne-
opinion.
But if
That's
you're gonna put the whole season
Yeah,
on, or the whole year in one page, and it's gotta be confusing. But what I had heard, which made a lot of sense to me, was to change the signage so that it just says from this date to this date, these are the rules. That's all the sign says.
Yeah.
And then when the dates change, you change the sign. So you update the sign so that people don't have to figure out and get out their decoder ring and figure out where they are and what time it is.
No, I agree with
And
that.
that made a lot of sense
I
to
think
me.
that
Yeah,
makes
that
sense
makes
because
Yeah.
So
most
with
of
the
us,
pamphlet, is this basically aiming at summer crowd, summertime?
Yes.
Would you want to decrease the amount of dog information? I heard a no.
No,
Yes.
Barbara said no.
Yes.
I think if you got time
No,
to
I mean,
study
it's-
it, you can figure it out.
Yes,
It's
yes.
when you're walking on the beach and looking
Okay,
at the
so,
sign.
but that's not the brochure, the
That's not the
signs, yeah,
brochure.
the signs are different
could you
from
just
that.
take a look at it and see
I
whether there's
will
anything,
take a
and
look
maybe
at this.
simplify,
Yeah,
if we could simplify the wordage, it is in an ordinance, so we're not going to be changing the ordinance. And we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have a dog committee, we're not going to go through all of that,
again,
yeah.
no, I hear you. Okay, I'll look at it, I'll go back through some minutes and if there was anything mentioned. And if anyone thinks of anything, will you let me know? Thank you. Thank you.
All righty, the next item is beach patrolling, and we had a discussion at the last meeting about increasing the number of courtesy patrol people during the summer. And Bob brought up the possibility of a mechanized, having an ATV for one of the summer people. Becomes a little bit complicated. The police have had an issue in terms of hiring people. That is, people who they consider qualified and who would stay the whole summer. So, I mean, like many businesses here, it's difficult to attract people, and it's, you know, limited wage, I believe it's something like $15 an hour. And to have someone using an ATV, they'd have to be trained. And apparently, Old Orchard Beach does have a couple of ATVs. I don't know whether it is summer people or their actual police department, and I suspect it's probably policemen who have the ability to go up and down the beach. We have a long beach, and the problem is a few people patrolling both the parking and the back lots and then the beach. And this issue has come up every year. The complaint that the safety officers are, complaint is, well, I see them on the street, they're not on the beach. Or I see them on a bicycle. And the town doesn't, they hire the safety officers, not just for our beach, but you see them in Dock Square. There are other places in town. So for the police, it's a difficult issue in terms of getting enough qualified people. They had one person last year who they had to let go. Trained her. She was responsible for part of the beach, but disagreed with the dog ordinance and thought people should be allowed to have their dogs run free anytime, and refused to give warning permits or tell people they had to leash their dog. So I don't think they were able to replace that person, so they were short one. The issue in terms of an ATV was brought up in a meeting by Bob, and Bob, you want to talk about it?
Since I raised it, I'll maybe throw it on the table. The concept is this. A lot of people see the courtesy officers walking the streets looking for parking stickers. Go up and down the street, up and down the street. A lot of people don't see them on the beach. Sometimes there are issues on the beach, and so the concept of being able to cover the beach better would be as if there were some sort of motorized vehicle. Personally, I'd like something that's battery powered, so it's both not going to tear up the environment and also help here in terms of noise and so forth. But the idea is that a courtesy patrol officer could be there, that could be seen, be visible, they'd be much more visible to the beach. If they got an issue, they're there. If there's a first aid problem, someone can get there sooner, and any sort of issue down there. And so the concept I simply raised to the chief and to our town manager was, is it viable that we could ask one of our courtesy patrol guys to be motorized and going up and down the beach? So if there is a call in and say, gee, somebody's in trouble at a certain point, could be there with first aid or whatever if it's a big issue. Or if somebody says, you know, the plovers are here and somebody's got their dog running into the plovers, I know somebody who would do that, they would probably call and say, you know, let's go down and check them and see what's going on. But where the courtesy officers are spending their time on the street looking at stickers and not as much time on the beach to look at beach use, it's just a question that I threw out and said, is this a viable concept? And you can say, Sherman, you don't understand the beach, and that's fine. Or, you know, it's a good idea, could we just explore it a little further? Or table it. That's sort of the idea on the table. And I'd welcome somebody else's input besides what I talked to my wife about. So.
Anyone
Can I
have
comment?
any comments?
I do. I applaud your looking for a solution to being more visible, but I am so firmly against running a vehicle up and down this family beach.
Okay,
Strongly, strongly opposed.
okay, fair enough.
Whatever it's worth, I agree. The only thing worse would be the ATV with a sign on it. But what I want to know is the question we raised at the last time. There's enough money in the budget that this town could be hiring more people. They have no control sometimes, you select people to on the education budget of the town. While the enrollment goes down, the education budget goes up greater than inflation. Okay? And that needs to be dealt with, I hope. But I don't understand, we calculated the amount of money that was coming into this town through the fines and everything else, and the selling of the parking ticket. You know, I think there should be, if we feel there are things that need to be done, whether it's with fires, kayaks, behavior of the beach, dogs, whatever it is, we may need an increase in personnel. And if they fit, you know, the person who left last year, it's too bad. It's a failure of that person maybe to get hired, and a failure of the person who hired the person. And they should just go out and look, you know, there's still young people in training and criminal justice things who like to have a summer job. And I think we ought to, if we feel we have these needs, we ought to increase the personnel, and ought to be put into the town budget, because you're bringing in a hell of a lot more money from the beach, from Goose Rocks Beach, forgetting the taxes even, than you're spending.
But I wonder what the issue is. Richard just said they were having trouble filling the positions. So demanding more positions isn't going to help fill the positions that they already cannot fill.
Do we know how hard they tried?
Of course, I do not.
Okay.
But they advertise, Jim, and we did pass there was a motion at the last meeting to increase the number of courtesy safety officers, and that motion has been conveyed to the town manager.
Thank you.
And as Barbara Barwise indicated at the last meeting, it has to go before the budget board and the selectmen.
Can I ask just one more thing, just because I'm curious? How about if the safety officers had bicycles to get back and forth? Is that a doable?
They do have bicycles.
They have
No,
bicycles
for
on
the
the
beach.
street,
For the beach.
but
I
not
mean
on
on
the
the
beach.
beach.
A fat tire
Yeah.
Fat tire bikes on the
Bike.
beach. Is that an acceptable solution?
It would be
then?
better than an
Better,
ATV,
okay.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
With a sign.
with a sign.
Yeah.
The sign is-
But no, I think
All right, I'm sorry. I still get concerned, because I have somebody who gets really upset when there's dogs down in the plovers and there's nobody around and haven't seen anybody for 6 hours or something, I don't know. That's
especially
what I
down
hear.
your end, there is a
Yeah. Anyway, it's just a thought. I'm going to throw it out. Thank you very much for listening.
Well, just John, are you familiar with the use of wide tire bikes on the beach?
No,
No?
I tried to use one in Hilton Head, killed me. I mean, they're just, you have to pedal, you know.
There was
Well,
someone
I-
on the beach the other day with a bicycle, actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
How old were they?
they were.
Well, good for them.
Working very hard.
Well, yes, exactly, especially if there's a wind, you know.
They also make bikes that have electric power assist.
You can get e-bikes,
And-
yeah,
And
yeah.
$1,000.
Yeah,
That might be an interesting
you know,
compromise.
there's also the issue of, if we have a vehicle on the beach, whether it's a bicycle or an ATV or what have you, the town has it, we're going to have lots of other people say, why can't I go on the beach with my bike or
Oh, that's
right.
or my motorized vehicle?
You're right.
And I think we create an additional issue for the police and for everybody who uses the beach. So that's,
Thanks for
Good
listening.
observation.
okay. But, you know, we can talk to the chief and see whether there is a possibility of using bicycles with wide tires. I'm not sure that I'm particularly in favor of any bicycles on the beach.
But I was curious, I was asking Joanne, is there a restriction on bicycles on the beach today?
I think there,
Good
I
question.
didn't think there
No,
was,
no,
but.
I don't think
No,
so.
I don't think there is.
motorized vehicles, yes.
Motorized, yes,
yes.
no, absolutely, that's why, yeah, good, just checking.
Yeah. But, you know, there are those motorized bicycles.
Yeah.
And
They'll last for a month, as Joanne pointed out, in salt water, so that's,
Okay. An issue that has been on our agenda for quite a while, and that's kayaks. And we did appoint a committee last time, and at least one of the members of the committee, Jen Wasserman, who couldn't be here tonight, has done some research on it and is prepared to talk about it at our next meeting.
We will have more of a report in the
Let's
next
table
meeting.
that, yeah.
I've started to do some research just in town, talking to other areas that have kayaks, storage, et cetera, to see how they handle it. It's a different ball of wax because it's really more of a homeowners association and private property. But we will be, Jen has already, I think, gotten a good piece of the action done on checking on other towns. We just haven't been able to communicate with each other yet, but we will before the next meeting and have a report ready.
Well, there is something in the beach use agreement as well as the beach use ordinance in terms of kayaks and storing them. And it just, as I looked through both documents, and particularly the beach use ordinance, I didn't see where there was a designation in terms of a particular area. They talk about Diggy Point, but a particular area where kayaks can be stored. I mean, given the increased use of the beach, the number of kayaks, and the fragility of the dune grass area, it's really incumbent upon the town to have some way of regulating the use of, or the storage of kayaks. Now, they're not supposed to be stored overnight unless you have permission from the beachfront property owner that you can store it on their
question's gonna
property.
be conservation land again. That's gonna be the issue, that's,
Yeah,
and that's the most vulnerable dune is there,
Right.
so that's.
So-
And that was an issue when Mike Weston was on the Beach Advisory Committee, and he did try to set up some way to store the kayaks so they were not
Right.
on the.
Tried to set up, I know, yeah.
Yeah, and that may be a possibility. I mean, people don't want their kayaks washed away, so they put them up
Yeah.
beyond the high tide. But maybe there has to be some way of securing them or getting them off the beach.
Richard,
So-
there's a question. A lot of things have begun to come up this evening. And I just wondered, as we redo the brochure, as you look at some of the issues you've raised and raised observations on, whether or not there ought to be a thread of looking at what other changes need or don't need to be made because of the outcome of the lawsuit. In other words, there are theoretically two classes of homes on the ocean. Some who were in the suit, some who were not. Some who signed the agreement, others who didn't. And what are the liabilities, what is the responsibility of the town now for management of the dunes or management of other things as opposed to the signers of the beach use agreement or the both? And I don't know whether anything needs to be done or not, and I'm not arguing for one thing or the other, except I wonder whether or not as we get into some of these things, because there are two kinds of owners on the oceanfront now, as a result of the decision, and the town is the owner for a lot of it. Does somebody somewhere, whether it's the town's attorney or they need to take a look at, as we proceed doing things with kayaks and fires and redoing the brochure and dogs and everything else to take a look at it? Maybe you don't, maybe I'm just making one.
I think they already have talked about it.
Couple of things already on here, respect the 25-foot area, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
beach use agreement, number one. I'm looking on here, and right here, storage of boats or gear overnight without property owner's permission. You're not supposed to store anything
Okay.
overnight, it's already on here.
Yeah. All right, and you said there,
Oh, yeah, the town lawyers are looking into, or checking with other towns, and, what are they doing? So we're already looking into it,
okay.
yeah.
So at the same item, I'm sorry,
Well, I was just going to say, and I agree, I think this is a sort of pivotal point with this longstanding litigation resolved, thank heaven favorably. But I think there are a lot of sort of uncertainty about, and I agree, and it would be really helpful, Sheila, if the town's attorneys would kind of keep us in the loop too, because we're usually the first point of contact from people who have questions about, well, how is this supposed to work, or this is, not working well, and we've all seen that there is certainly much more building around here, much more intensive use of the beach. So rather than reinventing the wheel and saying,
Yeah.
we should start a project to do that on the beach advisory committee, if it's something that's already in process, can we kind of have a little bit more communication back and forth so that we don't try and reinvent the wheel and, you keep us advised of, or the town attorneys,
Sure.
the town manager keeps us advised of what's happening.
We may not need to be the first to know, but we probably shouldn't be the last.
Right.
And just an example is John saying on the dunes and things like this, who does what now, and if things happen on preserving the beachfront and all that, what do we do?
well, it would seem to me that the dunes, no matter what we have in the ordinances, the dunes are an issue with it's your property or it's the town's property.
Jean Shimataro. I think this is exactly what you're speaking to, Kate, and I mentioned this last time too, when the attorney for the state was arguing the appeal last spring. She stated, the attorney for Maine, that the public has the right to engage in reasonable ocean-related activities, including walking, but that do not interfere with the upland owners' enjoyment of their own property. So I think there is a whole aspect here of, besides people's health, the situation of understanding what we should have for the public and what is the town's responsibility health-wise, taking care of the beach and, what's left behind and all of that. It's now that it is town property, it is a whole situation where I think we can re-examine what's safe and what's good.
The beach is, As Jim indicated, there are at least two classes of property owners at the beach. Those who signed the beach use agreement are one. They own the beach in front of their house. There is an easement in perpetuity to the town for the use of the town and the general public. There are those who participated or at least supported the plaintiffs in the case, and their property ends upland. They have no interest, real estate interest in the beach. The town owns the beach. But that's a minority of the properties on the beach. Because there are something like 110 properties, and there are maybe 65 of those properties, lots, that are part of the beach use agreement. And the rest were either plaintiffs, former plaintiffs, or those who couldn't make up their mind or essentially supported the plaintiffs, hoping the outcome would be different. But it's sort of, it is a new ballgame.
I don't see it too as just whose property abuts the beach or whose property is, 25 feet out towards low tide. It's who's impacted by the activities. And Lauren Parker was the one, she was the state attorney that was speaking to this. And those activities need to not impact the ones that are upland, as she put it. And so we're not abutters, but that's the air we're breathing. So I think it's an issue that spreads out.
Okay, I mean, we had a lengthy discussion about this earlier in the meeting, and we've agreed that we would continue the discussion with the town.
Thank you.
Okay. In addition to the question of kayaks, there's the question of beach equipment. And there is not supposed to be any storage overnight. There's no sleeping on the beach permitted. So it's partly an issue of enforcement, but I know that as we've had more people using the beach, we've had more ingenuity in terms of what they bring to the beach. And we're just going to have to decide whether or not we want to have the enforcement that is necessary, which means the police is going to have to be out there more often and tell people, you either move it or Public Works is going to confiscate it. I mean, it's going to have to, we're going to, at some point in time, have to do something. Because I know riding along Kings Highway during the summer, there are all kinds of structures that are out on the beach, and they're there. Somebody comes here for 2 weeks, they put their canopy or whatever it is down on the beach, they reserve a spot, and it's there until they go. Well, that's not what our ordinances say. If it's in the 25 feet reserved area, the property owner who was a signatory to the beach use agreement, that's permitted. But in terms of the general public or in any other areas, not permitted. And I know that Carol Sherman emailed something to a couple of us today in terms of wells prohibiting tents on the beach. I don't know that I've seen canopies, but I don't haven't seen any
Define
tents.
tent, I mean, the pop-up igloo windbreakers,
For the babies?
For the babies, you put up for the day and take down? Well, please don't ban those. Oh, excellent.
No, Wells, it would,
No, I have it.
Well, I thought they did a good job on it,
yes.
but I don't have the article.
I have it
Yeah.
right here. Thank you for sending it to me.
Yeah.
It does, it looks as though it doesn't define exactly what they've defined or dimensions or something like that. It's clearly raised, well, not so much in the article. A baby tent of 36 inches as proposed isn't high enough, apparently.
No, it does, keep going. It's like 7.5 feet umbrella and a baby tent. It has to be securely positioned.
I don't see that in this article
Anyway.
itself, but
That's gonna be problematic.
I mean, I don't disagree with the concept, because I do think we're getting amazing-sized beach equipment, the stuff that, I remember thinking when we had one of those sort of big tire-type, inner tubes for ourselves and our kid, it was like, wow. And now, massive elephants and things like that, to say nothing of things that are left there or implanted there for an extended period of time. So it's not just a matter of the overnight, at least, issue that Wells has addressed, but just in general, the size of anything that's put up on the beach. And it's somewhat a safety issue, which I don't disagree with either, that a lot of these things may or may not be well anchored. And if you've got, it's one thing when you have a normal-sized beach umbrella take off down the beach in a good stiff wind, as we all know we get. But if you have something even bigger that's careening down the beach. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it's something, definitely keep an eye on what Wells has done. It sounds like we're not the only town that is encountering these problems. And we'll certainly keep looking at it. Carol?
The ordinance allows a small baby tent, Carol Sherman, Kings Highway. The ordinance allows small baby tents and umbrellas up to 7.5 feet tall and 8 feet in diameter, as long as they have no grounding lines, which I'm assuming the ropes or sides. And what they had said, that people put up these canopies that are 10 by 10, then they have, and that people, there's not enough room on the beach for people to come. So it just came in, I just saw it and I passed it on, that's all.
Thank you.
Handicap parking spaces, the town, we did pass a motion last meeting about increasing the number of handicap parking spaces, and the town is going to designate 2 additional parking spaces where the handicap ramp is.
The ramp is perfect.
Good.
Water quality testing, there's additional testing, and at the time that Bob and I met with the town manager, they didn't have the results of the DNA, the recent DNA testing. The bottom line, and we've got 2 scientists here who have been involved in this, and welcome their comments, but the bottom line seems to be, if you're not at one of the rivers, that the water quality in most instances is pretty good along the beach. It's the 2 rivers, and the town is proposing to put warning signs about swimming in the areas close to the river or in the river.
Say that again, Richard, they are going to put signs?
Yes. Steve, did you want to comment? Don't have to. No?
How smart is he?
Pardon me?
I'll defer to Steve.
2 smart guys.
Do we will we have a chance just to see what the wording on those signs are before they make them? Will we? So good, so you're gonna be involved with the,
I'd like to look at what they're going to say.
I would like to, but do we know you're going to? Are you?
If somebody on the committee gets something, I'll look at it.
Yeah, I think we need to be sure, we need to ask respectfully if we can review the verbiage before it's put on the sign.
Okay, I'm not, I mean, the general gist of it is the potential of high bacteria count in the rivers suggests that you're not swim here. So exactly how that they're going to word it, I'm sure it's going to be short and
And where will they be placed?
both rivers.
Well, yeah, it's a big river.
No.
Down-
The beach end where the river meets the ocean.
On the beach?
On the beach?
Yeah.
On the beach?
Yeah,
It's an echo.
It's 2.5 miles of beach, and at each end, there's a river. And you don't want people swimming there.
True.
No, we got it. We
I
got
just
it.
question the stability or
Yeah,
signs
so am I.
on
I'm
the
not quite
beach.
sure how that sign's gonna,
Yep, one
I
good
could see
storm
it
and
at Jeffries or
boom,
put it
done.
somewhere, but where they're gonna put it, I think is going to be important.
Well, I think we're going to have to leave it to the town and to Public Works Department to figure that out.
Two sides.
I'd like to suggest that we don't. I think we should have a motion that maybe ask one of the members of the group, there, right there, one, and our two friends in the audience, to, if someone would float by them the floating signs and give them an opportunity to comment on the wording and where they're put. And when, if they're not there all the time, you know, if they disappear and appear, whatever you need to do with it. And I would be happy if John and our two scientists in the audience had input to that.
Well,
What's wrong for us that we're only advisory? That's kind of like being a eunuch in a harem, you know? But I think that if we are advisory and we have concerns about it, we ought to have input into it.
Oh, I'm sure there'll be plenty of input, wherever we put it.
But I'd like to see plenty of input from the Beach Advisory Council, not just plenty of input for something that appears overnight, like buying 46 acres of land.
I'd like to congratulate Jim for agreeing to be part of the committee that decides what the sign says.
No, I
Thank you,
didn't.
Jim.
I
Yes, you
second
did.
that motion.
No,
No, you have to, Jim, if you
no,
got,
I'm
you feel that
already,
strong.
I'm already in a kayak. I know where-
Secondly, I think that we missed one other key point. That is that the tests that have been taken on the river, both the Batson and the Little River, have been very informative, and some things have happened. In fact, somebody who has a septic system actually was asked to make a change, and guess what? It cleaned up some of the issues that occurred at the river. We also have been able to see if the animals are involved and so forth, what they are. They've been able to define that. So the testing program itself has been effective, and I want to thank the committee for pushing for that because it has made a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it's a continuing program, I believe. is the best of my knowledge.
Now you want to say something.
This is Steve Hanna of 7 Crescent. And I see in this discussion, similar to about the fires on the beach, that a big problem is enforcement and wording. And, you know, we talked for half an hour about bonfires and small fires. The police are gonna shut down the bonfires. Who's gonna draw the line between a bonfire and a small campfire? I don't know where to draw the line. And what are the police gonna do? I mean, you're saying, okay, they're gonna go out and shut down a bonfire. So they go out, how are they gonna decide? And we haven't discussed that at all. And the same thing about the water quality at the rivers. You know, we've tested it and studied it, and it looks like a lot of times at low tide, the water quality is bad at the rivers. But what do you do about it? And right now, we have a sign that is, I guess it goes up, or she puts it on the website or something that says something like, you were advised not to. It's a very weak
And it's the whole
thing.
beach, too. I mean,
Yeah, and it's the whole beach. Okay, so you want to say something about the rivers. I'm not sure exactly how to put it, so I think somebody needs, the town and us need to figure out a wording that is realistic, and the same thing on the bonfires on the beach.
I certainly agree on the wording and the placement and the number of signs. I think this committee ought to at least be in the room when, and we don't have a final say, obviously, the town does, and they'll do it, but we are an advisory, and this is an issue that's important to us. So do we need a motion to ask that we be involved, or would you just ask, and how does that work?
I'd be happy to ask.
Good. I think that's really all we're saying. If they decide that they don't need our input, then that's what we would need to know.
You bet.
Thanks.
Can I get up and ask a question? Unless it's on the agenda, is trash on the agenda?
Can we just go through our agenda? We had the,
Okay.
we'll open it up again after the agenda. There was a question the last time about the parking stickers, and, you know, you buy a parking sticker and, well, you can't find a parking space. And the discussion was, well, why can't you get a refund? Well, it turns out that if you get your parking sticker at the police department or the town hall, and you drive to Goose Rocks, and you can't find a parking space, you can turn around and go to the police department or the town hall and get a refund. But the general store, which issues many of the parking stickers, buys the stickers from the town at a discount. It is a commercial operation. They sell you the sticker, it's a sale. No refunds. So that is the issue in terms of if you want to make sure that you can get a refund, then go to the police department or the town hall. If you buy it at the general
That's what I
store,
meant. We
you're
never know
buying
what's
it
going
just
on.
as if you were buying a pack of Pepsi-Cola or what have you. It's yours.
And the idea is it's not reusable, unlike something you'd buy at a store, be able to return it, they could resell it. But if you've bought the parking sticker, it's got your license plate on it, they can't resell it. So to their defense, I mean, that makes sense, because it's unlike a store where you could bring it back, well, it's not a candy bar, I'm sure you could bring back candy bar, you hadn't opened it. But, yeah.
But,
They
okay.
can't resell it.
Can I still ask a question about that I don't think has been resolved, at least to my satisfaction? I still would love to know how many daily parking stickers we make available every day when we know we have 173 or 78, I forgot.
73.
73 parking spaces. We know that certain numbers of them are sold, stickers are sold the whole season to residents or people who own property there. Certain numbers there, I mean, we've got so many different types of stickers. And then if we have an unlimited number of daily stickers that we're selling, I just have a problem with that. I don't know why we don't have some level of control over
I
that.
believe they are rationed, and that supposedly.
I don't know, that's a question I've never
That was my
quite
understanding
got
from
answered.
last year when I asked, and they're supposedly, they will contact the police department and say, stop selling, we're full. Now, that's what I was, understood the process
In other words, like the
was.
police who are going by or the community safety
Exactly.
officers will
Report
say.
back, yeah.
Okay, well, that
But
would make
I,
me feel
you know,
better, and I
we
think
do
that should
need to
apply to the
understand it.
town, to the general
Yeah.
store too, because otherwise, continuing to sell stickers for spaces that
I
really
would
don't
agree.
exist, I think is somewhat of a fraud on the public, and it also creates additional parking problems in terms of people then saying, I'm just gonna park pretty
Could-
much
could
where I
we
want to.
have- Could we have someone describe exactly what the process is? I think I'd be curious to know what that is too. Is that something the town could present to us and talk to us about and hear our issues?
One of the reasons why they continue to sell them is because people don't stay at the beach. I used to bring my kids, and I would stay for an hour, and then I'd leave. Because they, after about an hour and a half, I'd had enough. And so, we'd leave. I mean, I always went in the morning because that was their best time, and I was gone by 11 o'clock or 11:30. So there's always a turnover. And again, if you buy it at the police station, you can get your money back. If you go to the store and say to them, but what if there's no parking place? They'll explain to you, well, once you buy this, it's yours. And, it's like going to the store. You go up and down the rows and you try to get the closest parking place you can, and you wait for somebody to leave. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and I've been at the police department when people were purchasing stickers, daily stickers, and I've heard the police say, you may not be able to
Right.
find a parking space. I mean, it's a busy day, the sun is shining, but you can
Come
have
back.
a refund.
Yep.
Any other new business from the
Yes.
board?
Yes. This is, hopefully, we're very close to my last beach advisory committee meeting. I have termed out somebody who has beachfront property needs to come forward and fill this slot. I cannot run anymore. I'm termed out. I can't do this anymore. Thank you for the opportunity to do this, and I'll be back and still around. But we need someone from the beach who loves Goose Rocks as much as just about everybody in this room, and will help it be viable, strong, and a terrific place for people to come in years ahead. And so I'm encouraging, if you're watching on television or you're sitting here and saying, geez, maybe this is your time to do this, because we really do need the people. You can see the issues we face, and just thank you for that. I hope, and I will be back again for another meeting, but I'm almost done, and somebody needs, because the elections will be here over the next month or two, and we need to get people who are willing to serve. It's a commercial message. Thank you.
One qualification of that, Bob, is that the beachfront property owner has to be a signatory to the beach use agreement.
I'm sorry, yes. There are 64 people who've signed the beach use agreement. One of those 64 people needs to, one more of those, excuse me, because we have a couple of us here, need to participate and step forward. So if you know someone who's there has signed a beach use agreement, please have them join, have them get their name into the town. Thank you.
And your position is the only one that's up
Yes.
this spring?
Yep.
And Kate, is your position? No?
No, I was re-upped this past spring.
Okay. All right. Any other business? Well, let's talk about next meeting. Obviously, it's availability, but let's talk about months, and then I'll get some dates from Arlene.
What are your suggestions?
March?
March?
Skip February and March.
Bring in the other March if there's any.
Okay, beginning, end, doesn't make any difference.
What,
It's a
Doesn't matter,
question.
it's all bad.
What's
so
all
I'm
that?
here the whole
Doesn't
month.
matter. We're here.
Well, the end of March is difficult for me.
It's in the middle of Ides of March. Where?
We're here forever,
14th, 16th, 16th,
So-
17th,
I think.
So beginning, middle,
Doesn't matter.
beginning and middle.
Yeah.
I'm good the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, the first 2 weeks would be better. I'm going to be a great
First
aunt,
week's
so
even better.
Yep.
I may be going to middle.
I have to be there.
Lucky for you.
It'll be a truly great aunt. It'll be exciting.
okay. And any other comments from the public? It's open.
Here you go.
Got my chance?
You're up.
Hit the lectern.
Got another hour?
Okay.
Not really.
I'm kidding. Jonna, Kings Highway. All right.
Oh my God, she's got notes.
Trash and beach cleanups. Does that go on a schedule? Should we discuss it in March? Is that something, because,
Do you mean the beach cleanup day?
Beach cleanup scheduled, yeah, like if there's, I know that we usually have them, but I just would kind of like to know ahead of time so I can plan, because I come up for them.
We've done it in May, and last year we did it on Mother's Day, which probably
Not a good idea.
Not a good
wasn't
idea.
our best
Or worse,
choice.
that-
No, that was not a good idea. I couldn't make it.
Yeah, no,
It's the
nor
first one
I.
I haven't been able
Right.
to.
Yeah, and there's been discussion, or at least a suggestion, that instead of one, that maybe there should be two cleanups.
It sure needs it,
That could make sense. People
especially
can't
in the
make
spring.
lawn.
I know
There's a
about
lot of
that.
stuff.
That could make sense.
Well, we know that there are already a number of lobster traps.
I personally have 6 in front of my house.
Oh, my
so-
goodness.
That's
Oh,
really
yeah.
bad.
I had one that was stuck, but
Well, they're gonna be stuck.
yeah.
You know, we've had one by ours, right?
I have
Well, we-
17 lobster traps
Oh, you win.
behind my house and pieces of other lobster traps as well that I've picked up. And I've asked the town, and we met with Lori, Richard and I did, to find a way where the town, now that they own the beach and nobody's arguing, pick up your beach. And so we've asked the town to find a way to begin to do a better job of clean up the debris out there.
There you can have. them
so
up
that's
there.
already being discussed. That's already
Yeah.
like something you're
Yeah.
talking to.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And Bob has picked up so many of them. There's still others out there. They keep
I know,
coming,
I
and,
know, I know,
and
I
it
know.
seems to me that the town needs to talk to the lobstermen about
And
coming
Lori,
in.
we met with Lori and said, come on, guys, you
Yeah,
can
you've
more
done it, yeah.
participate in this. So, yes.
We set them all up into a
You just
cocktail
pick 'em
table.
up, you pick 'em up and put 'em into the dumpster.
Was there also anything else mentioned at some meeting that I might have missed about flagging or being very clear in the brochures about entrances, the access points to the beach?
Well, the private access points, most of them have signs saying private way. So.
What are you looking for?
Well, we had discussed it at one meeting about, it'd be like people from the beach side coming up and looking for the access, and then they just walking up on to people's properties and cutting through.
So
and-
from the beach, have it designated
Yeah,
as-
like those
as a access
flags or
point.
something where people could see it, even if they're temp flags, like, either that, or something even from the street side that say access, beach
I
access.
think there are signs on the
On the
on the
street
road,
side,
on the
road
street
side.
side, yeah.
Really?
Not on the beach. No?
Uh-uh,
I'm wrong?
not that I've seen.
Mostly it's
What, the access points all have,
trash
the,
barrels.
52 signs.
well,
They have signs, they have the
The
signs, the
signs
beach
and-
regulations, those are all the access.
Those are there.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if that was something that was being
well, they've been,
added
they've
if
been
there's a
there
little
for a
map.
number of years.
Yeah.
Okay. I just know that it was mentioned and then I didn't hear anything about it again.
Flag at the road. Could make some sense.
And we have people who
Seasonal
park
flag,
and just
seasonal flag.
schlep their stuff right through the property and they see a bridge that goes over the stones, so they think it's okay to walk right through.
I've had people
Yeah.
cut through mine, I just. Then they go
Sometimes
faster.
I'm okay with that.
They go
A lot of times I'm not. So, nothing else to be said on that?
No,
I don't think so.
no.
Question?
Jim?
Since we have the privilege of having a select person here, is there anything you can, and you may not be able to say, I appreciate that. Is there anything you are able to say about what's happening about the rest of the trash solution for the town and as it may apply to Goose Rocks Beach also? But
Talking about recycling?
the recycling and all, can you tell us anything, what's happening? I thought that was what she was gonna raise.
We have a committee that's working on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and the chair
John
of
is
the
doing
committee
it.
is,
Chair of the committee is-
Yeah, it's John, yeah, I know, yeah.
We are.
Yeah.
We are.
No, I
And
know.
it's a work in process.
Yeah, you
and
did a great presentation the other night.
It's a work in process, and we just see a lot of cooperation, and
Good.
we're hopeful to move forward.
anything else? From the board, from the public? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second,
Second?
all in favor?
Night.
Thank you, guys.